They mocked his stuttering for months, then saw what he could do with his fists. Jason Chen stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, trying to calm his racing heart as water dripped from his face. 3 weeks at Ridgefield High, and he was already branded as the school's punching bag. His slender frame, combined with a pronounced stutter that worsened under stress, made him an easy target. He'd hoped moving to Flagstaff after his father's job transfer would give him a fresh start, but high school hierarchies were frustratingly predictable. "I just get through the D-Day," he whispered to himself, practicing the breathing techniques his speech therapist had taught him. Jason had learned to manage his stutter over years of therapy, but stress always brought it roaring back, and nothing created stress quite like being the new Asian kid at a predominantly white school in a small mountain town. What no one at Ridgefield knew, what no one could possibly suspect, was that behind Jason's quiet exterior lay years of intensive training. His uncle, a former Army Ranger who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan, had taken Jason under his wing after witnessing him being bullied at age 12. For the past 4 years, Jason had trained religiously in various combat disciplines, focusing primarily on Krav Maga and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The disciplines had given him not just physical strength that belied his lean frame, but a mental fortitude he kept carefully hidden. Fighting is always the last resort, his uncle had drilled into him repeatedly. Your training isn't about hurting others, it's about protecting yourself when there's no other option. So far at Ridgefield, Jason had kept his skills concealed, enduring the daily torment while hoping things would eventually settle down. But the main source of his troubles, a group led by Trevor Walsh, seemed determined to make his life a living hell. Trevor was Ridgefield's golden boy, quarterback of the football team, son of the town's wealthiest real estate developer, and untouchable in the eyes of the school administration. His 2 main sidekicks were Ethan Miller, a linebacker with a mean streak, and Derek Reynolds, whose father served as the school board president. Rounding out their crew was Cameron Hayes, smaller than the others, but perhaps the cruelest, always. Eager to impress Trevor with increasingly vicious ideas, they had targeted Jason from his very first day, when his nervousness had triggered a particularly bad stuttering episode during his introduction in English class. Trevor had immediately mimicked him, sending the class into laughter while the teacher, Mrs. Phillips, had merely sighed and asked Jason to take his seat. The hallway clock read 3:15 p.m. Jason slung his backpack over his shoulder and headed for the exit. If he could just make it to the bus, he'd be safe for another day. The first month at Ridgefield had introduced Jason to a catalogue of humiliations. It started with the usual verbal jabs, mocking his speech with exaggerated stutters whenever he tried to speak in class. Teachers mostly ignored it, some even smiling slightly as if they found it amusing. Other students quickly learned that befriending the weird stuttering kid would put a target on their backs too, leaving Jason isolated. Trevor's group escalated to physical harassment within days. They would accidentally bump into him in the hallways, sending his books scattering across the floor. In the cafeteria, they'd knock his lunch tray from his hands or steal his food when he wasn't looking. Jason found himself eating alone in bathroom stalls more often than not. Hey, Chen, Trevor called one afternoon, his cronies laughing behind him as they cornered Jason by his locker. Got any fortune cookies to share today? Jason kept his eyes down, focusing on his breathing, trying to become invisible. His uncle's voice echoed in his head. React with your brain, not your fists. I think he's ignoring you, Trev, Cameron said, stepping forward to slam Jason's locker shut, nearly catching his fingers. Nobody ignores me, Trevor replied, shoving Jason hard against the metal lockers. Especially not some skinny foreign kid who can't even talk right. Jason felt his heart rate accelerate, but maintained his calm exterior. I need to catch my B-bus. Listen to him, Ethan hooted. Sis sounds like a BB broken record. Your bus can wait, Trevor said, plucking Jason's physics textbook from his arms and tossing it to Derek, who immediately played keep away, throwing it over Jason's head when he reached for it. The game continued until Mr. Reeves, the chemistry teacher, rounded the corner. The group immediately dispersed, Derek dropping the book on the floor with a heavy thud that echoed down the now empty corridor. Everything okay here, Chen? Mr. Reeves asked, eyeing the fallen textbook. Yes, sir, Jason replied, knowing that saying anything else would only make things worse tomorrow. Mr. Reeves nodded and continued walking, either oblivious to or deliberately ignoring what had just happened. By the 6th week, their tactics had grown more sophisticated. In PE class, Coach Harrington had them playing basketball, and Trevor made sure Jason was targeted. Whenever Jason got the ball, he was fouled hard, elbows to the ribs, shoulders checking him into the wall, feet subtly extended to trip him. The coach merely yelled at Jason to toughen up when he hit the floor for the third time. Later that same day, Jason opened his locker to find his gym clothes soaked with what smelled like rotten milk. The stench followed him for the rest of the day, earning him disgusted looks and exaggerated gags from classmates. The digital harassment began soon after. Someone, almost certainly Cameron, who prided himself on his tech skills, had created a fake social media profile using Jason's name. The profile was filled with broken English and racist stereotypes. Photoshopped images showing Jason's head on ridiculous bodies circulated through the school's social networks. When Jason tried reporting the fake account, the guidance counselor, Ms. Weber, had smiled condescendingly. "Boys will be boys, Jason. The best way to handle bullies is to ignore them. They'll get bored eventually." But they didn't get bored. Instead, they got creative. 2 months into the school year, Jason was surviving, but just barely. He ate lunch in the library now, the one place Trevor's group rarely ventured. He'd made exactly one friend, Sophia Martinez, a fellow outsider who shared his advanced math class and didn't seem to care about his stutter or the social suicide of being seen with him. "They're just insecure jerks," Sophia told him one day as they worked on calculus problems. "Trevor's dad pushes him so hard about football that he takes it out on everyone else." Jason nodded, appreciating her attempt at perspective, but knowing it didn't make his daily reality any easier. The next escalation came after Jason aced a physics test that Trevor had failed. Ms. Wilson had made the mistake of praising Jason's perfect score in front of the class, while mentioning that several students, including Trevor, would need to retake the test. That afternoon, they were waiting for him, all 4 of them, behind the gymnasium where the security cameras had conveniently been broken for months, according to the rumors. "Think you're smart, Chechen?" Trevor snarled, shoving Jason against the brick wall. "Making me look bad in Wilson's class?" "I didn't," Jason began. "Shut up," Trevor interrupted. "I'm sick of hearing your pathetic voice." Ethan and Derek moved to either side, blocking any escape route, while Cameron watched with an eager grin. "Hold him," Trevor commanded, and his 2 largest companions grabbed Jason's arms, pinning him against the wall. Trevor dug through Jason's backpack, pulling out his physics notebook filled with meticulous notes. "Let's see how smart you are without these," he said, tearing pages out one by one. Jason struggled against the hands holding him, feeling a familiar heat rising in his chest, the anger he worked so hard to control. "Stop it," he managed. Trevor paused mid-tear, an unpleasant smile spreading across his face. "Make me, stutter boy." For a brief moment, Jason considered showing them exactly what he was capable of. But his uncle's warnings held him back. Using his skills could cause serious harm, and despite everything, he didn't want that responsibility. Not yet. The sound of approaching voices caused Trevor to drop the notebook. "We're not finished," he whispered, leaning close enough that Jason could smell the mint gum he was chewing. Not even close. They left him there, surrounded by torn pages of notes, trembling not with fear but with the effort of restraining himself. That night, Jason called his uncle for the first time since moving to Flagstaff. "They're escalating," he explained, his stutter less pronounced in the comfort of his bedroom. "I'm afraid I might react." His uncle's voice was steady on the other end. "Remember your training, Jason. It's not just about physical techniques, it's about mental control. But also remember that everyone has a breaking point. If that moment comes, do what you need to do to stay safe. No more, no less." Jason hung up, feeling both reassured and unsettled. He hoped that moment would never come. The breaking point arrived 3 weeks later, on a rainy Tuesday in November. Jason had successfully avoided his tormentors for several days, changing his routines and staying within sight of teachers. But Trevor and his friends had been watching, waiting for an opportunity. It came during lunch period. Jason had stepped into the bathroom near the cafeteria, not realizing until too late that it was empty and that 4 familiar figures had followed him inside. Cameron immediately wedged a chair under the door handle, effectively locking them in. Trevor's face held none of his usual mocking humor, just cold anger. "You've been hiding from us," he said quietly. "That stops now." Jason backed up until he hit the sinks. "What do you want?" "To teach you a lesson about respect," Trevor replied. "Hold him." This time Jason didn't remain passive as Ethan and Derek approached. He sidestepped quickly, using his smaller size to slip between them, making for the door. But Cameron blocked his path and a heavy hand, Derek's, caught his shoulder, spinning him around. The first punch caught Jason in the stomach, driving the air from his lungs. He doubled over, gasping, only to feel hands grabbing his arms again, forcing him upright. "Not so smart now, are you?" Trevor taunted, landing another blow to Jason's ribs. "Let's hear you stutter through this." Jason could feel his control slipping as Trevor continued the assault. His uncle's training had prepared him for pain, taught him how to take a hit, but everyone had their limits. "Get his head," Trevor commanded, and Jason felt his hair being grabbed, his head forced back. "I hear stutterers sometimes need a good wash to reset their brains," Trevor said, nodding toward the toilet stalls. In that moment, something inside Jason snapped. Years of practiced restraint gave way to a cold, focused clarity. Time seemed to slow down as his training took over. With a sharp movement, he twisted in their grip, using the momentum to break Derek's hold on his right arm. Before anyone could react, Jason's elbow connected with Ethan's solar plexus, causing him to release Jason's other arm as he doubled over in pain. Free from their grasp, Jason moved with practiced efficiency. A swift palm strike to Cameron's nose sent him stumbling backward, blood immediately streaming down his face. Derek recovered enough to charge forward, but Jason sidestepped, using the larger boy's momentum to send him crashing into the paper towel dispenser. Trevor stood frozen for a split second, disbelief evident on his face. It was all the time Jason needed. He closed the distance between them in 2 quick steps, deflecting Trevor's desperate swing with a forearm block before delivering a devastating combination, a strike to the throat that cut off Trevor's shout, followed by a powerful kick to the knee that sent him collapsing to the floor. The entire encounter had taken less than 15 seconds. Jason stood in the center of the bathroom, breathing heavily but controlled, surrounded by his fallen tormentors. Cameron was curled against the wall, clutching his bloody nose. Derek was slowly picking himself up from the floor, eyes wide with shock. Ethan remained doubled over, struggling to breathe, and Trevor lay on his back, gasping and clutching his knee, tears streaming down his face. "I don't stutter when I fight," Jason said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The bathroom door suddenly shook as someone tried to enter from outside. "What's going on in there?" came a teacher's voice. "Open this door immediately." Jason looked at his former tormentors, then calmly walked to the door, removing the chair Cameron had wedged beneath the handle. Mr. Reeves burst in, taking in the scene with widening eyes. "What happened here?" he demanded. Trevor, still on the floor, pointed shakily at Jason. "He attacked us. He's crazy." Jason met Mr. Reeves's questioning gaze steadily. "They followed me in here. They've been bullying me for months. I defended myself." "Is this true?" Mr. Reeves asked the room at large, though his eyes lingered on Trevor's sprawled form. Before anyone could respond, the door opened again, and Sophia hurried in, ignoring the fact that she was entering the boys' bathroom. "I saw everything," she exclaimed. "They followed Jason in here. I heard them planning it in the cafeteria. I went to find a teacher, but—" "All right," Mr. Reeves interrupted, holding up a hand. "Everyone who can walk to the principal's office, now." Principal Dawson's office was uncomfortably silent as she surveyed the damage. Cameron's nose had finally stopped bleeding but was clearly broken. Trevor had been taken to the hospital. Jason's kick had torn ligaments in his knee, potentially ending his football season. Derek and Ethan stood with downcast eyes, their earlier bravado completely evaporated. "I've been aware of tensions between you boys," Principal Dawson began, her voice tight with controlled anger. "But this crosses every line." "He attacked us," Cameron protested weakly. "After months of you attacking him," Sophia countered from her seat beside Jason. She had insisted on staying as a witness, and surprisingly, Ms. Dawson had allowed it. "We have security footage of you four following Jason into that bathroom," the principal continued. "And Ms. Martinez is not the only student who has come forward about witnessing your behavior toward Mr. Chen." Jason looked up in surprise. Other students had spoken up. "Mr. Chen," Principal Dawson turned to him, "while I understand you were defending yourself, the level of effectiveness with which you did so raises questions. Where did you learn to fight like that?" Jason took a deep breath. "My uncle is a former Army Ranger. He taught me self-defense after I was bullied at my old school. I never wanted to use it." Principal Dawson studied him for a long moment. "I see. Well, given the circumstances and the testimony we've received, you'll receive a 3-day suspension for fighting on school property. These four," she gestured to Trevor's friends, "will receive 2-week suspensions pending further investigation. Mr. Walsh's punishment will be determined after we speak with his parents and assess his medical condition." She leaned forward, her expression severe. "And let me be perfectly clear, any retaliation against Mr. Chen or Ms. Martinez will result in immediate expulsion. Do I make myself understood?" The three bullies nodded silently, avoiding eye contact. "You may go." She dismissed them, then turned back to Jason. "A word, please." After the others had filed out, Principal Dawson's expression softened slightly. "Several teachers have come forward admitting they witnessed incidents involving you and failed to intervene. That's unacceptable and will be addressed. I apologize that it took this extreme situation for the truth to come to light." Jason nodded, unsure what to say. "Your uncle taught you well," she continued, "but I hope you understand that violence is never the preferred solution, even in self-defense." "I know," Jason replied, his stutter momentarily absent. "I tried everything else first." Jason's return to school after his 3-day suspension marked a palpable shift in the social dynamics at Ridgefield High. The story of what had happened in the bathroom had spread like wildfire, growing more elaborate with each telling. By some accounts, Jason was a secret martial arts champion. By others, he had military training and could kill with his bare hands. The truth, as always, was somewhere in between, but Jason found himself unbothered by the rumors. For the first time since arriving at Ridgefield, he walked the hallways without looking over his shoulder. Trevor remained absent, his football season indeed over due to his knee injury. His father had reportedly threatened to sue the school and Jason's family, but video evidence and witness statements had made the situation legally precarious for the Walshes. The threats eventually subsided. The other three returned after their suspensions with dramatically altered attitudes. Derek actively avoided Jason, changing direction whenever they crossed paths. Ethan had approached him once, awkwardly, to offer what seemed like a genuine apology. "I never realized how bad it got," he'd mumbled, unable to meet Jason's eyes. "My dad was really disappointed in me when he found out." Cameron underwent perhaps the most striking transformation. He'd approached Jason in the library one afternoon, his nose still visibly swollen. "You could have done a lot worse to us," he said quietly. "My cousin's in MMA. He said that move you used on Trevor could have ended with a completely shattered knee. You held back." Jason had simply nodded, neither confirming nor denying. "I was a jerk because I thought it made me important," Cameron continued. "I'm sorry." Sophia had rolled her eyes when Jason recounted these conversations to her. "They're only sorry they picked on someone who could fight back," she pointed out. "But at least the school's a little safer now." She was right. 3 other students had approached Jason privately to thank him. They'd been Trevor's targets before Jason arrived and had suffered in silence for much longer. Perhaps most significantly, Jason's stutter had improved dramatically. Without the constant stress of anticipating harassment, his speech flowed more naturally than it had in years. Ms. Weber, the guidance counselor who had dismissed his earlier complaints, had called him to her office to offer a stilted apology. "I should have taken your concerns more seriously," she admitted. "We're implementing new anti-bullying protocols because of what happened." Jason accepted her apology with grace, though privately he wondered how many students had suffered because adults had looked the other way. His uncle called regularly, proud but cautious. "Remember, with skill comes responsibility," he reminded Jason. "You've shown them both." On a crisp December morning, as Jason walked up the steps to Ridgefield High, he passed a group of freshmen being harassed by a senior he didn't recognize. The senior was knocking books from a smaller boy's hands, laughing as papers scattered across the ground. Jason paused, catching the senior's eye. He didn't say a word, didn't make a move. He simply stared, calm and steady. The senior's laughter died in his throat. He mumbled something that might have been an apology and quickly walked away. Jason helped the freshman gather his papers. "You okay?" he asked, his voice clear and confident. The younger boy nodded, eyes wide. "You're Jason Chen, right? The one who—" "Just Jason," he interrupted with a smile. "And don't worry, things get better." As he continued into the school, Jason realized that his stutter would probably never completely disappear, and that was okay. It was part of who he was, just like his training, just like the quiet strength he had finally allowed himself to reveal. He had come to Ridgefield hoping for a fresh start. In the most unexpected way, he had finally found it.